Without a shadow of a doubt, it's the Crockett Show in social media history. I want to welcome you to another episode of the War Zone. Every night, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, 7 o'clock, you know what time it is. I am the 5-star general. Say, man, I had to go get the home team for this one. We've been talking about school safety, and who better to talk about it than the good doctor himself, Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, the Southwest Regional Minister. We're going to go in tonight. You might want to share this one and stay tuned. Say, man, I want to welcome you to another episode of the War Zone and tell you thank you for taking the time out to tune in like you do every night. You know, without you good people, I would not have a show, so I really appreciate it. Just let y'all know I got a virtual fundraiser. The first one of the political campaign season coming up Thursday night at 7 o'clock, hosted by Lloyd C. Ford. He's going to grill me. I'm running for State Rep House District 131. And Thursday night, my man he gonna take the gloves off on me, and he not sending me the questions beforehand. I gotta be able to answer them on the fly. I gotta be able to give you the answers on the fly. But Thursday night, I need your help. Whatever you decide to donate, you know, every single penny that you give me is going to be spent on the campaign. So I look forward to seeing you. I've been talking about school safety for 10 to 12 years. I even got kicked out the school district fighting for school safety. And during the journey, I ran into Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad, and he accepts me for who I am. He's never tried to change me. But the one thing we care about is we care about people. We care about community, and we care about these youngsters. And when it comes to schools, we partnered up a few years back, me, him, Reginald Gordon, Calandria, Erica, the whole team, Will and Cash. It's so many of us, K. Reno, Cliche. And we went inside of the schools. Superintendent at the time, Dr. Grenita Lathan, allowed us to go into some of the toughest schools in the city of Houston, in HISD. We penetrated those schools, and we were able to make a difference to where you had principals that were applauding us, like Jonathan Trent over at Wisdom High School. God bless him. He's retired, good doctor. He retired this year. And the thing is he applauded us and said ever since we had come to his school, that violence had decreased significantly. Right now, the city of Houston, the school systems, you need a lifeline. You need a lifeline right now because you're playing the law average and you keep getting caught every 2 to 3 months. You keep getting caught. But I brought the good doctor on tonight, not as reinforcement, but he's always got some great ideas and some great knowledge. So I want to welcome him to the show. What's going on, Doc?
First of all, greetings. Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you, brother, and to the audience of the War Zone. How's the 5-star general doing?
Man, I'm good. I'm up in St. Louis, came down here to help my Panthers brothers and sisters, start the free breakfasts and feed the community. So, what I can't do at home, a prophet will be accepted everywhere except his home. So I'm doing exactly what the higher power wants me to do.
That's beautiful. Brother, that in truth is what the Black Panthers were really feared for. That it is the breakfast program and the health care and the education that they provided that actually frightened the enemy more than them having guns, believe it or not. And it is that that program of feeding the children free breakfast that the government literally took that idea themselves. So, the biggest fear is always going to be, brother, that grassroots organizations or movements that are contrary to status quo, meaning things as they are, will gain traction with the people So what happens is that they will fund some interloper, somebody that's more acceptable, who's a little less brash, uh, maybe have their hat in hand. They'll fund them, but they won't give it to those people who are connected to the people. Because it's like this. Minister Farrakhan teaches us that if you have a wise man, keep him poor, so that his ideas can never come to fruition. And if you have a a rich man, keep him dumb, so that eventually you'll be able to siphon off his riches and he'll die broke. We've seen this played out many, many times. So in this particular case, brother, I wish you the best, and please extend the greetings to our brothers and our sisters in the movement, and tell them to keep on keeping on, because that's what they need to be known for, is taking care of the people. And if they give all power to the people, which that power, as you said, from the higher power, the power comes from God, but serving the people is as a sacred duty as anything that we can preach out of our mouths or read out of a scripture. Service to our people, being servant leadership, is what this thing is about, and what we have always tried to demonstrate in our efforts to stem violence and to do conflict resolution, particularly in the school systems that we visited.
Here's my question. I know we have school officials that watch this program religiously, and this information gets down to several superintendents that I'm good with. Want to send a shout out to one of them, Mr. H.D. Chambers over in A-Leaf. He's going to retire this year. No matter what people may think about him, if there was ever a problem in A-Leaf, all I had to do was just call, and if he was out of town, the secretary would pipe him in to me, and he would always call me back. So I want to send him a shout out and tell him thank him for his level of service that he's given to these children. I think the elephant in the room, Doc, is we've had several school shootings in the last few years. What do we do? Where are we? What should be done at this point?
Well, what I'll do is I'm gonna pitch back to you, believe it or not, brother. And the reason why I'm gonna do that is because you are the candidate that's going to have the opportunity to put government resources, should you prevail in race 131 in district 131, to be able to craft these actually public policy solutions. I can tell you from the standpoint of a person in the community that's the head of an institution, but what I practice is not necessarily going to be acceptable in terms of the entire society. But I'll tell you what, let me give you an example. The Nation of Islam has a cultural way of dealing with violence. You know, and I know that when you come to a Nation of Islam meeting, everybody gets searched. Everybody gets searched. I get searched. I'm the minister. Well, I'm going to kill myself, but I get searched because that is our way. Everybody gets searched. So if you think about the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, up to the millions of people who have come to Nation of Islam meetings, why don't we have those kind of problems? Because everybody is told that which could disrupt the peace, harm others, you got to leave it outside of this meeting. So first thing first is that security is prevention. Security is prevention. We are disallowed by God and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to carry so much as a penknife. That's not our way. Yet, as I know, that we walk in the valley of the shadow of death among some of the toughest gangs and street organizations that there are, going to the prisons. And why do we have respect? Because they know we love them. So let's start with the fact that, do you really care about these children and the teachers and the administrators. You protect what you love. And if that means searching everybody and keeping harm out, then you do that. So I'm not against them hardening security, as they call it, but I'm also a little as a spiritual clergyman. You know, I'm not going to say when they took Jesus out of school, guns came in. Come on, I'm not that argument. But there's a principle involved with that. You took out prayer, and okay, there's a principle involved with that. Those who don't want to see, the government can't legislate a state religion. They can't do it. But why do you stop people from practicing their faith tradition? Faith traditions are based upon if you can extract from them, forget about the what you call doxology, meaning people's traditions or how they do a thing, and let's extract the principles from it. If you could take religion and really just boil it down to really one thing is to do unto others as you would do unto yourself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked Minister Farrakhan, he said, brother, what's the best religion? Mr. Farrakhan was dumbfounded when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked him that. He said, but why? He thinking in his mind, why are you asking me that? All he's ever taught me is Islam. He said, well, Islam? He didn't say yes, he didn't say no. He said, brother, it's to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Don't you want the children, the teachers, and administrators to come home to their families like you do? Then you do whatever's necessary to keep them safe in their line of work. Now, you know, there's going to be different things, you know, letting teachers carry weapons and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but why do they have to be trained in carrying weapons and at the same time got to be teaching our children? And as you know, brother Gary, we have experience in the school that the teacher is a juvenile probation officer, psychologist, surrogate parent, and now we got to make them policemen in the classroom. This whole thing is based upon a false premise. The Second Amendment was never meant for everybody to have weapons of war. I'll argue that with any constitutional scholar that you can bring on this medium. This is a false argument that's been put out for the last 40 years. And let me tell you why. Anybody you bring on here, I'm going to ask them a series of questions. Why is there a Bill of Rights? Is a Bill of Rights because there were many in the constitutional conventions of the 13 colonies who, in a sense, refused to ratify the Constitution that those men signed in Philadelphia in September 17th, 1787, without a Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment, I would ask, who was it that drafted the Second Amendment and why? And what was the original draft of the Second Amendment? I'll read it to you when we get later. I'm going to read it to you. And why did it change? And who influenced the author of that Second Amendment to change the language of it? And why did they need a Second Amendment? Why did they give citizens the rights to bear arms? What was it about this militia? Who among the founding fathers was against a standing army? And why in the Constitution is the only appropriation that is mandated in the Constitution every 2 years, the military budget? Why? See, all of those questions will lead you to this fake argument about everybody having the right to bear arms like these military style weapons. Having a gun to defend yourself and your family and your property, that's one thing. Having a gun to hunt, that's another thing. Being a collector of arms is another. But these nut jobs People who have no love for self and love for others having access to these kind of high capacity weapons to do what? What is an AR-15? Who hunts squirrels with an AR-15? Come on, man. That is the civilian model of the M16. What was the M16 designed to do in Vietnam and beyond? Come on. It wasn't to hunt warthogs, deer, and whatnot. Whatever happened to real hunters who had a single shot rifle with a scope? Or the farmer, everybody, if you black, man, or Hispanic, or even white, and you got a farm, everybody got a shotgun. Come on. Everybody, you know, your grandparents and all them, they had a shotgun over there in the corner because you had critters and whatnot you had to protect. So let's get back to, first and foremost, what did we do? Gary, we didn't go in there with guns and bombs and metal detectors. We dealt with human relations. Why did the gang violence go down? Because we got into the minds of the children that were involved with, and many of them, and that school wisdom is almost like United Nations, particularly of the Latin American countries. You had El Salvador's, Nicaraguans, Hondurans, Mexicans, blacks, Asians, all mixed up out of that Sharpstown kind of Southwest area. Muslims, Arabs. Why did it go down? It went down because they realized that if they continue to do what they do, that a bigger fish was coming to gobble them up. I don't know if you remember the statement I made to those who were El Salvadorians. I said, see, you keep on messing around MS-13. Y'all keep involved. I'm telling you, the immigration policy is not going to be very kind to you. And the more y'all cut up, the more attention you bring to your community. And some of your very relatives are going to get caught up in that thing. I don't know if you remember me saying that, but I told them that. Human relations. Start with human relations. Want for your brother and sister what you want for yourself. Do unto others as you would do unto them. And then security is prevention. It's not reaction. Everything that the police do and law enforcement do is a reaction. There's hardly any preventive work going on. It's all reactive. So if they would let us help them, we could prevent the crimes, and they could concentrate on those miscreants and malcontents that don't want to live in a decent society, that do make things dangerous. Then you focus on them. Then when you get them in the jail, we can go minister onto them. And the last point I'll make, let me give an analogy. You know, I'm a storyteller, so let me give an analogy. Analogies aren't always good, but I want to try to paint a picture for everybody that's maybe listening and watching. Crime and violence is like you washing your dishes in the sink, and you get a call and someone tells you, please come to the hospital. Your mama's sick and she's at the hospital. You in a panic, leave out, run out, throw on your slippers, jump in the car and just drive off. Find out your mama, had acute indigestion. It really wasn't a heart attack, but you thought that's what it was. You was relieved. But when you turned the key back in the door, you stepped into a puddle of water that was on your floor. What do you do first? Do you get a mop and bucket and mop it up? Or do you go to the source of where the water's coming from? Remember what you did. You left the faucet running and the dish rag was in the sink. So the water overflowed. So do you get a mop and bucket? No. Go turn the water off. Unplug the stopped up drain. Then get the mop and bucket. Prevention. Security is prevention. The Million Man March. Contrary to the lie that was told by the National Park Service, we had nearly 1.8 to 2 million men on that mall. No, 400,000. That was a lie. We know by the number of buses and all of that. That's something we'll talk about maybe on another show. But my brother, you had Bloods, you had Crips, you had Gangster Disciples, you had Latin Kings, you had Four Corner Hustlers, you had East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, you had people from the city, from the country, you had fraternities, you had fellowships, you had every stripe of black man, Christians. 85% of the men on that mall that were surveyed said that they were Christians. So, but why wasn't there one fight? These men were standing shoulder to shoulder for 16 hours. Not one fight and not one arrest connected with that Million Man March. How is that possible? Nobody, the minister told them, leave your guns at home. How is that possible? How did we have 35,000 men come to C.L. Jackson's church on April 11, 1994? 35,000. The church only holds 15,000 people. 20,000 of them got turned away. How come there wasn't one fight, one riot, one car towed? 22,000 that September 11th of 1994 at the Astrodome for Family Day. Not one fight, not one arrest. I can tell you of the thousands. We probably, in my 35 years of ministry, I probably put 100,000 live people in front of Mr. Farrakhan in all those times. And nobody has a record of any violence coming from our meetings. Because security, y'all, is prevention. Now, if you could take those principles and turn them into public policy, Gary, you'll be the one that will solve America's problems and the governor, regardless of what party they're in this legislature's problems. So I'm putting it out there. I can get more specific, especially on that Second Amendment, because that is a canard if I ever heard one. I'm not no gun grabber. I just not one who carries one.
The thing that perplexes me the most is right now I'm not in office, so I'm at the mercy of the ones that are. But the ones that can push the buttons and really move the needle, especially when we're speaking of school safety, and we're not just talking, when we say school safety, we're not just talking about random school shootings. We're talking about on a daily basis of what these people, these children, and these people that work in this school go through. Yeah. The people that can move the needle, from the mayor, county commissioners, the county judge, all of these people ride around on a daily basis with security. You can't get in City Hall unless you go through certain security measures. You can't go into an HISD school board meeting unless you're searched and all of this. What bothers me is the people that can move the needle have security. So I don't think that they feel or they understand the urgency of what needs to happen right now. What's your opinion?
Well, what I found, brother, working in this society and working particularly with those who, I hate to call them elected officials, these so-called public servants, is I find that they don't move unless the constituents bother them. See? If the constituents don't bother them, it's business as usual. But if the constituents are stirred up and make demands on them, then they have to tell those people who finance their campaigns, look, I need to put your agenda on hold because the constituents that put me in office are upset about a particular issue and I got to do something. For the most part, as Minister Farrakhan has taught us, that politics without economics is symbol without substance. Is that we misunderstand and misread this whole political system from its inception. There were 74 white male property owners that were invited to the Constitutional Convention. 55 showed up, 39 eventually stayed and signed the document. Okay? All of them that stayed didn't sign the document. One of the famous one is George Mason. He refused to sign the Constitution as it was written. But what we fail to understand is that I think it's 56 white male property owners signed the Declaration of Independence on it wasn't July 4th. Okay, I won't get technical on you. But anyway, the point I'm making is that property is the basis of what the founding fathers of this country wanted men, white males. They didn't even want white males to vote that didn't own property. So this was always about ownership. So your politicians, because of the 14th Amendment, have corporations that have more personhood than you and I. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, the Reconstruction Amendments, brother, were passed for the freedmen, not minorities, not women, not LGBTQ. They were passed for the freedmen, us. We got so-called Juneteenth coming up. It will pass for us. 14th Amendment gives you citizenship, but not by a Supreme Court ruling, but something written in a Supreme Court decision gave corporations citizenship. So now you got corporations who can go to court and sue, saying that I can't give all this money to these politicians. You know why? Because it interferes with my free speech. Since when look, I've witnessed 2 men be put to death on death row in Huntsville. Somebody showed me a corporation strapped to that gurney with that cocktail put in them so that they're put to death, and I want to hear their last statement. What I'm saying, brother, is that as long as they pay the piper, they call the tune. So until the people are educated, this is why we're feared, brother. This is why this medium has changed the whole game, meaning the internet, because we're able now to have a conversation outside the control of the corporate media and the normal means of communication. And they're trying to control this now, what you can and cannot say on here. Some of it is misinformation and a whole bunch of bull crap, but much of it is true and something that we haven't been able to discuss publicly. So the politicians do not move unless the constituents bother them more than the people who fund them to take them off of their agenda. Where is our, and I'm an unapologetically black man, where's our unapologetically black agenda, brother? Where is it? Who's called a meeting so that you and I can sit down and say, here are the 10 things that we demand of whoever represents us, whether they're Republican, Democrat, or independent. Here's the 10 things. All right, state rep so-and-so, state senator so-and-so, councilman, mayor, congressman, senator, come sit before the community, and we're going to ask you a series of questions. We sent you in advance our agenda. Tell us what you're for and what you're against and what you think about our agenda. And we sit there, we listen. We ask questions. Then we dismiss them. And we have a conversation among ourselves. How did you like the response? And well, he agreed with 8. She agreed with 8 out of the 10 things on the agenda versus candidate B, who only agreed with 4 of the things, said 4 of them. Well, okay, we're going to give our endorsement to so-and-so and our money, and we're going to raise some money. We're going to write a check. We call them in and tell them so-and-so got our endorsement. And here's our contribution, and here's our volunteers to their campaign. But they don't want us to have an agenda, because if we had an agenda, we would hold them accountable. We as a community don't even look after our own security. If I say security is prevention is a principle, the security, our political security is prevention. Meaning you have an agenda, you look at what they're voting for, what bills they have filed, whether it comes to the committees, it gets a hearing, It goes to the rules committee. It gets on the calendar committee. Whether it gets to the floor of the House or the Senate is irrelevant to me. Did you file a bill according to this unapologetically black agenda? Because most of your constituents are black. Did you file a bill to ask for school safety? Did you file a bill for environmental justice? Did you file a bill for equal employment or housing at all price points? You don't even have to call it affordable housing. Housing at all price points. Did you file these bills? What did you do to decriminalize this or criminalize that? Did you file a bill? This was our agenda. What are you doing? So you're going to come back to me 2 years later and ask for my vote again? Now it's about how I feel about you. Now it's about how I think about you. It's what you said. It's what you did. I don't like, Monroe, he'll cuss sometimes. He'll do this. He'll come in a costume. He'll say some crazy stuff. Yeah. But when it comes to education, I sit back and listen to you because you have hardly been wrong. 98.9% of the time you've been right on these calls that you have made. So I have to bow to what is greater than me, in spite of what position I hold or what title I hold. In my relationship to the minister teaches that every time he meets somebody greater than himself. So why, when you say I don't try to change you, I kind of let you make that, brother. I just try to be an example of what I try to be, what I want you, what I want you to be. Sometimes you got to be a warrior. Sometimes you got to be a statesman. What I try to show you is that sometimes here's the statesman side of you. The warrior side of you, I never try to change that. The statesman side of you is all I want to bring to you. So how we take that fire and harness that fire of the warrior into public policy. How do we hammer that into public policy? So they're not listening to us. They don't listen to us. They listen to who give them fundraisers. They don't listen to us.
Exactly. Because this is like a real no-brainer. Now we've been in, say, Worthing High School back in the day. Nobody knew except for us that there were 25 identifiable gangs that were inside of this one high school. 25 identifiable street gangs inside of this one high school. But the thing is when, like you say, when we went in, we didn't go in armed with knives or guns. We went in armed with love and knowledge. We went in and we dealt with these children on a level that they had never been dealt with on. We made promises that we would always be there for them no matter what the situation was. And what I'm seeing now, whether it's in Uvalde, whether it's in Parkland, whether it's in Santa Fe, it's sort of like when we had the freeze or we had the hurricane and we had the flood. We've dealt with it before and we've done nothing to make sure it doesn't happen again. So what I'm hearing now is a bunch of condolences. But I mean, what can you tell a family that's lost their 4th grade child to something like this? Now, the rest of the school districts, you've been spared. But you won't be spared long because it's got to happen again. When you've done nothing to prevent it from happening, it's going to happen again. Now, I know for a fact that your wife was in education for a long time. I think, if I'm correct, she's retired. You being a husband, and if she wasn't retired right now, how would you feel about her going back into school next year and nothing is in place to deal with the safety aspect of protecting your loved one?
I'd be very concerned. I have a niece. She has a niece by her brother that is a school teacher. I'm thinking about her. So it's not like I'm oblivious. Not just I'm just talking. I am deeply concerned about my loved ones. And if she was going back in that school, I said, no, baby, you need to take an early retirement. I really don't want you in that kind of environment. Why? Because Gary, you know the hurdles we had to overcome was they were in denial that they had street organizations in it. It was like we don't have that problem here. Why don't you want to admit it? And why did you take away the gang unit that was in HISD police department? Why are you underfunded? Why is only one or two real officers that really know these street organizations and how to get along? And why don't you want to really get down into what is the barriers to learning when I'm hungry?
I think that if
So,
you started peeling back the layers on that onion, then it would expose the fact that Bel Air is no better than Yates and Wheatley when it comes to violence. Lamar is no better than Cashmere and Booker T when it comes to violence. We want to keep certain schools on a pedestal, but yet you have more going on at your pedestal schools than at the schools you say that's the real problem. This is how you let your guards down in education, and then you end up with a dead kid on the Bel Air campus.
well, you think about how they have typecast Yates with the early boys in the 103s. Man, they hardly have any problems at Yates. Yates is a beautiful school now, man. A beautiful facility that really should be a 6A school. If they was, to me, one of the worst things, what they call the school choice, there was nothing wrong with Yates. Yates produced not only athletes, but great scholars come out of Yates that could compete with anybody because they had teachers that cared about them and a community that had pride in Jack Yates. They don't understand why the community rose up like it did for George Floyd. George Floyd was Big Floyd. What happened to him? How that thing just galvanized. Why? What is it that about that crimson and gold, man, that makes the people great? It's not that other schools don't have that same kind of tradition, but if you think about it, what happened at Lamar with the young man that we told them, we said, look, if you don't take care of this pipeline, this feeder pattern, and what's going on, and think about it, brother. When you were in 1985, though Yates went all the way to a state championship undefeated and whooped them boys from Odessa Permian. Why didn't they make your movie about Friday? They could have called you the Thursday Night Lights.
Well, they didn't want to make the movie, but they did make a promise because we were the first all-black team to win a football UIL state championship. And we heard the rumblings because the coaches wouldn't hide anything from us, but we were graduating. So they said, we ain't gonna never let that happen again. And they haven't won a state championship since. That's when they really went to open enrollment. They started stealing the kids from the inner city schools. And contrary to popular opinion, I love you good people out in Katy, but they wouldn't even get on our schedule. They didn't want to play us. They would not even get on our schedule. And the times that Yates did play them, they beat the brakes off of them. So the thing is they didn't want that to happen. But you know what's so crazy? Because me and you and Reggie and all of us have been in these schools. We know the firepower that's on some of these campuses. We know the firepower that's on some of these campuses. And I don't foresee a mass shooting happening on an African-American campus. I don't see that because it's too many guns on that campus on a daily basis. It's too, and people think I just say that to say that, but you would be a fool to run up in Worthing High School talking about I'm finna shoot up the building when you got 15, 20 guns in the building ready to shoot back. But the thing about it that bothers me the most is right now we're in the middle of budget season for HISD. They're finna vote on the budget Thursday night. And there's nothing in the budget that deals with school safety. Oh, well, we partnered with the FBI. Man, the FBI just kicking it with you right now because they trying to send all y'all to jail. Yeah, they'll partner with you right now, but they trying to send a whole bunch of y'all to jail over in HISD. So, I don't know how you can partner with, say, the HPD when there's an issue at a school and you call HPD and then they tell you, well, no, you have a school system that has a police department, you have to deal with them. So where does the partnership come in at? But yet these kids still have to report every day. These teachers still have to report, and nothing is in place to protect them.
Well, again, it all boils down to what is your priorities, and your budget usually tells what your ethics are and what your priorities are. I go back to the fact that when you think about Yates, Worthen, Jones, Sterling, there was enough population in all of those schools, Madison, in all of those schools, where they could literally have very competitive games even among themselves. They all had bands, full football teams, majorettes. They had everything. All of them had that. There's no doubt in my mind that if they changed this enrollment mix, that all those schools would be 6A right now. But as you said, they've taken the best and brightest of us and wooed us out to these other schools. And now the demographics is changing, particularly in the Yates feeder pattern. One day you're going to look up and you won't even recognize the student body at Yates. It'll be completely different than it's been traditionally. These inner city schools get a bad rap, but many of these school shootings are not taking place in inner city schools. These mass shootings are taking place in other schools.
You finna start a social media war with that statement. You're about to start a social media war with that statement because I said it the other night. Man, check your people, man. This ain't happening in our schools. Them your kids doing that. These are your kids doing it.
And again, Gary, and I have somebody that I have to go see. So I'm gonna let you carry this for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna come back and talk with the people that are posting right now. Alan Guillory is posting a series of things in the comment section. But I'll say it like this: if we really want to solve the problem, we can. If we want to have, as Minister Farrakhan says, political partisanship will be the death of America. And as long as we continue to fight this partisan battle where we dig in and nobody's willing to listen to the other side and come to some kind of synthesis. See, I can have a theory. You can have an antithesis, which is an anti-theory. But we should, if we're going to make public policy, come together for a synthesis. What is the common ground that we can find? Do we love our children? Do we love the people who teach our children? Do we love the people that administrate our children? Do we want them to come home safe? Do we want them to learn so that they can advance the society? If we want those things, then we have to put that in priority. Is that a priority, or is owning a gun the priority? Are they mutually exclusive? What is the purpose of the Second Amendment? Let me do this, brother, and then I'm gonna I gotta read to you the original language of the Second Amendment. Just give me a second. I want to read to you, and I'm gonna tell you who it was. It was Thomas Jefferson got James Madison to write up most of the Bill of Rights. That's why it's called Madisonian democracy, is what it's called. James Madison is really the one who took the most copious notes on the Constitutional Convention, and the notes and the transcript of that was not released till after his death. Most of us, really, the problem is that most of us have been really deprived of a good education in terms of the very foundations of this nation. The first draft that Madison made read like this. Listen to this is what the Second Amendment was when he first drafted it. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, a well-armed and well-regulated militia being the best security for a free country. But no person religiously scrupulous of bearing arms shall be compelled to render military service in person. That was the original draft of the Second Amendment. But because of Patrick Henry and George Mason, who were slave owners, who did not want to go to this new federal government that they had created to have the right to put together the slave patrols to put down insurrections, said, no, we're not going to this federal government for that. We have to have a right to have our own militias within the state. Three things they were afraid of. One, they were afraid of England reinvading America. One. Two, they were afraid of slave insurrections. And three, they were against rebellions of their own white citizens against taxation and this new government they put up. So Mason and Patrick Henry and George Mason wanted to make sure that they could get their militias up to put down these insurrections and continue with their slave patrols. So Madison wrote this, and this is how it came out. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. So I'll just leave it at that, beloved. The truth of the matter is that this really wasn't about everybody having a military-style weapon. We have a well-regulated militia. It's called the National Guard. We have a well-regulated militia. It's called police force. It's called DPS. That's the well-regulated militia. But the fourth thing that I left out, the truth of the matter is what you've seen on January the 6th is the belief that this government, that they are a group of people and mindset in this country that got these weapons to fight their own government. So I got to go downstairs. I got somebody that come here, brother. But look, you carry it. And if you're still on when I get back, I'll do it. But I want to leave it like that. Security is prevention. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Want for the students, the teachers, and the administrators what you want for yourself, to come home and eat dinner with your families. May Allah bless you, brother. I'll try to come back in a minute. And I'm just going to cut myself off for right now and go see what these folk are doing downstairs. I'll be right back.
All right.
All right, peace.
The good doctor always has a wealth of knowledge. You protect what you love. We have walked side by side into some of the toughest schools in HISD, along with Reggie and Calandra and Erica, Albert, and Will and Cash and Cliche, K Reno, all of us. We walked in some of the roughest neighborhoods. We've stopped actual gunfights. But because I hold people accountable, you can't work with me. You don't like the fact that I require you to do your job. So you will leave the schools unprotected. You'll leave the communities unprotected. Because I know you don't love me and I don't need you to. This isn't about me. This is about finding solutions to the problems. And you have to get some people in a position that can do something with these laws unapologetically. to make sure that these schools are safe and to make sure that these kids and these teachers and everybody on those campuses are safe. You have to get people in position that are movers and shakers to be able to accomplish the goal. Now, we have the same problem in Texas that we have in California, that we have in Arizona, Louisiana, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, that these school shootings are not going to stop until partisan politics goes out of the door. It doesn't matter who comes up with the great idea, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. Because as they're burying those babies in Uvalde, they're not putting a DR and R on their caskets. So you Republicans and Democrats that are in power at the moment, because a lot of that's going to change in November, when are you going to step up to the plate? When are you going to step up to the plate and come up with some viable solutions? When are you going to show up for the fight and lockstep, Mr. Republican with Mr. Democrat, and you're going to do what's right by the people so that these kids can go into these buildings and not have to worry about if they're going to come out at the end of the day? It doesn't matter what city I'm in. I just blanked my screen a few minutes ago because that was my attorney calling me. It doesn't matter what city I'm in. Want to know why? Because I'm going to still get those educational calls. I'm still going to get them. And I'm bold enough, whether I'm sitting on the school board or whether I'm just at the podium, to say what needs to be said, but yet lead by example. And this is what you politicians need to start doing, is leading by example. Because what our children are facing, your kids are in private schools. So Ted Cruz, you need to get your goddamn mind right. Your children in private school, you don't go through this. But it's more prone to happen at that private school than it would be at the school that's next door to you. It's too wishy-washy for me. And I'm going to get off my soapbox after today because I got to start doing shows about other things. But that should tell you for 4 to 5 days, this is all I've been talking about, because I live this, I eat this, I breathe this with these children on a daily basis. And if you end up winning a state legislation seat, the chairman, the Speaker of the House is normally the person that appoints you. And if I win my race against Alma, I pray that they appoint me to the educational committee. Because I can tell you one thing, from the time I sit down in the room, I'm going to put the work in. I'm going to be writing bill after bill after bill after bill after bill. You ain't going to let them out of committee. You're going to have to kill them. You're going to have to do whatever you need to do. But I'm going to keep writing them to transform education in the state of Texas. See, this ain't all about just my district, my community. This is about every single child in the state of Texas that's in danger right now. And yes, they are in danger. I want you guys, and we'll bring Doc on another day. He's always, he'll come on in a heartbeat for me. But I really want to bring him back one day so we can just talk about anything that you guys want to talk about. And if you know him on Facebook, reach out to him if you got questions to him. He's a genuine brother. But I can tell you this, you ain't getting in that mosque for no meeting unless you get searched, men and women. You're not getting in City Hall unless you go through the metal detectors. Commissioner's court, same thing. So how are we allowing people to come into our schools? You protect what you love. You protect what you love. It's no questions about that. It's no questions about that. Remember Thursday night, my friend, 7 p.m., I will be doing my first virtual fundraiser all day today, minus, not all day today, a few hours today. I went in and fine-tuned my website, so I'll have the website up where you can donate directly to the PayPal on the website, getting the kinks worked out as we speak. But Thursday night, man, it's time to go to work. It's time to go to work. I think that life has passed some of these politicians by. It's time for you to pass the baton. But if you choose not to, in the immortal words of one of the greatest philosophers to ever live, see murder. I'm about to pull a kick though in November. Say, man, it's a reason. I'm the best in Noob and Twitter. You get on the phone and call somebody. I want to thank my guest tonight, student minister Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad from the Nation of Islam. And you know who I am. I am the 5-star general. Thursday night, we kick it off. And if you got to donate money to me, I'm going to start it off with the first donation. I need your help. Send a soldier to Austin, Texas. But I ain't going to get rich. I'm going to do the work. Until tomorrow night, I'll holler at you.